All right, so now that we have added distilled water to the 10 powders that we're looking at, the first thing is to notice whether or not they dissolved. That's the solubility test, so that's the first test after the microscope, which the microscope was the pictures that I put in the assignment. So this is salt, and it's nice and clear, and it dissolved. And then we have Na2CO3, nice and clear, it dissolved. And then we have NaHCO3, and it's nice and clear and dissolved. And then we have NaOH, and it's clear and dissolved. And then we have H3BO3, which is nice and clear and dissolved. Then we have CaSO4, and it's cloudy, and there are still particles at the bottom, so it did not dissolve, so it's not soluble. And CaCO3 is the same, still has particles and cloudy, so it did not dissolve. And then we have starch, cornstarch, which has particles and did not dissolve, so not soluble. And then we have sucrose, nice and clear, so it dissolved. And then we have MgSO4, nice and clear, and it dissolved. So that was the first test after the microscope. The second thing you would do is the 3 that were not soluble, you have to then add iodine to those solutions. So we are going to add iodine only to the 3 that were not soluble. Put that whole drop because it's got to get down there. All right, and then do the ones next to it. And one more. So we're adding iodine to the 3 that did not dissolve. So those are going to got to get down in there and mix. So we're going to give it a little bit of time. Mix them up. Mix that up. And I don't know if you can already start to see that there's a little bit of a change in, oh, sorry. I guess if I move it closer, it doesn't work as well. But these, the first 2, when I get closer, it doesn't really show very well, but it's more of a yellow color. It's clear. I mean, it's cloudy because of the stuff, but it's like a clearish yellow color. And same thing with this one. It's also a clearish yellow color. But this one is starting to turn dark. And let me see if I can get a paper towel. To kind of put behind it. Maybe it'll show up a little bit easier. Maybe all of them will. I don't know. So I don't know if you can see that yellow tint that it has. That's the first one, CaSO4. This is the other yellow, CaCO3. And then starch is this one. And it is a darker color. It's starting to turn dark, kind of hard to see, but it's turning a dark color. They call it in the book sort of a deep blue, or sometimes you'll see it more like a black. Kind of just depends on how much starch is in there, and I didn't really add a whole lot. We added small amounts, so it's just starting to tint that water this dark color. So at this point of the experiment, we have now identified this test tube. So test tube 8 is identified as starch, and we're not going to test it anymore. It'll be finished. The other 2 that we did not identify as starch, we still have one more test to do. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to try to decant off some of the liquid. So I'm going to pour some of the liquid down the drain. And then we're going to try to pour some of the liquid off of this one down the drain. Okay, and it leaves just a little bit still left down in the bottom. The next test you're going to do is you're going to do acetic acid. So I've got some acetic acid, and we're going to pour just enough acetic acid to kind of really cover the bottom of both of these two. So do the, yeah. So I'll tell you when to stop. Just keep going, keep going. All right, that's good. And then do the other one about the same amount. Keep going. There we go. All right. And so we have added acetic acid to both of these. And we'll mix them up. And mix them up. And if I'm holding CaSO4, and this other one is CaCO3. Do you see any bubbles in that one?
Not really.
Sometimes they're just really, really tiny. You might have to look really carefully at them.
Oh, wait, I see them at the bottom.
Yeah, so it might be hard, especially for those of you at the house, to see this. But there are really little bubbles starting to form on the calcium carbonate. So what that does is it now identifies the bubbles in CaCO3, identifies that as CaCO3, and the non-bubbles, since there was nothing in the CaSO4, there's no bubbles forming, that is identified also as CaSO4. So we are now not going to test these three anymore. So that still leaves 7 that we need to identify. And 2 of them are going to produce a very strong basic solution. And when we add phenolphthalein, they're going to turn bright pink. So we're going to add phenolphthalein to the other 7 and look for the ones that have a bright pink color to them. So you just need to add maybe just a few drops. So we'll see. So do like 2 or 3 drops. That's good. And then do that. All right, stop.
All right.
Yep, those 2. Okay, so 2 of these turn a bright purple or pink color. The second one, which was Na2CO3, so now we've identified that as, we haven't identified it. We just know that it is basic and it's a bright purple, so you can see that. And the other one that turned a bright purple is NaOH, sodium hydroxide. So both of those produce a very bright pink, purplish color with phenolphthalein. That's what we added, was phenolphthalein to those. So now we have those 2, but we got to still identify each of those 2. So we are now going to add acetic acid just to the 2 that we just turned pink. And we're going to look to see if we see any bubbles forming. And that one should not have any bubbles. And that one, you should start to see bubbles forming soon, but we might need to mix it up a little bit because it looks like it's just kind of stuck at the top. Add a little more acetic acid because we got to get it down into the, and you can add a little more to this one so that we're trying to be fair about it. So this is the Na2CO3, and you're going to get little tiny bubbles at the bottom. Yeah, little tiny bubbles again at the bottom. Hard to see, I know, but there are lots of little tiny bubbles at the bottom. So that identifies this as Na2CO3. And because this one did not bubble, it's NaOH. So we're done with those two. So now we're done with 5. Okay, we've done these 3 and these 2. So we still have 5 left. And the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add sodium hydroxide to the other 5. Now remember that we've already added phenolphthalein to those 5, which means that these are going to turn pink, but it's not because they were the original ones. So let's say, make sure we do the right ones. Yeah. 2, 3, and then 4 and 5. All right, so they turn bright pink, right? Because we added sodium hydroxide, which we already had phenolphthalein in it, and because phenolphthalein identifies with sodium hydroxide, they're going to all turn that bright pink color. But when we add this, one of them is going to become cloudy, and like all of them will have that purple color, but one becomes kind of more cloudy than the others. So this is the one that is cloudy. Everything else is kind of a clear, and this one forms a cloud precipitate at the bottom. So this is magnesium sulfate is the only one that becomes cloudy. So now we've identified this one as MgSO4. So now we're done with that one. So now what it does is it tells us we have to start with fresh samples of each of these. So we're going to get some fresh samples. Of the 4 that we still need to identify, so I'm going to get some smaller test tubes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Put them right over there. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to turn on my water because I'm going to have to wash my thing after this. So we need salt. We haven't identified salt yet. So we're going to put a little salt in here. And then I'm going to go wash this out and then dry it because we don't want to get water in there. And then we need NaHCO3. So we're going to add a little NaHCO3 in there. And then we're going to add H3BO3. Get quite the right amount. There we go. All right, H3BO3, and I believe sucrose is the next one, right? Sucrose. Yeah, here we go. Sucrose. So we're going to add a little sucrose in there. There we go. So now, what we're going to do, the water a minute. After adding fresh remaining, we are now going to add more acetic acid to each of those. So go ahead and add acetic acid. There you go. And right away, we can see that one of them starts to bubble. So I'm going to pull the one that's bubbling up so you can see it. Bubble, bubble, bubble. Go ahead and add a little more acetic acid while it's in my hand. That's good. And I guess I should have added a little more NaHCO3. But anyway, it bubbles really well. And the other ones do not bubble at all. So no bubbles, no bubble, and no bubble. All right, so that's the end of those. So this time we have now identified NaHCO3. And we're done with this one. So I'm just going to push it back out of the way. Well, all of these we're going to get rid of. So that's going to end up with those three. So now we still have three more we need to identify. I'm just going to put these down and get some more test tubes. So we only need 3 test tubes this time. And we need salt. We need H3BO3. And then we're going to have sucrose. All right. Now this time we're going to add isopropyl We're going to add isopropyl alcohol to our samples, our fresh samples, to see if any of them dissolve in alcohol. Keep going, like kind of cover it up. Yeah, there you go. Now do about the same amount in each one. All right, so we're going to give it a second. We're going to swirl them around. Maybe just swirl that a little bit more. Might have put too much in there. All right, so while that's still working, but if you look in the bottom of this one, you can see that the salt particles are still down there. Even after I've swirled it, they still land down at the bottom. So it does not dissolve. And this one becomes clear, and it is soluble in alcohol. And then this one, you can also see the particles, this is sucrose, sorry. Sucrose also does not dissolve in alcohol. So again, now we have identified this middle one, H3BO3, as being soluble in alcohol. That leaves us with 2. So let me get 2 more test tubes. Okay. And we're going to do fresh samples of the last 2 that we need to identify. So we have salt. I'm going to put a little bit in there just so it's easier for us to see it. So there's some salt. And then we're going to have some sucrose. Look about what I did in the other one. Trying to make sure we got about the same amount. Okay. So now we've got our last two samples. And to test the last two samples, need more paper towels. We are going to use like hot water. So we know that both of them, salt and sugar or sucrose, are both soluble in water. But what we're going to try to do is find out which one is more soluble in hot water. And we know that they're both going to be soluble, but we need to find out which one is more soluble. So I'm going to put some hot water in some small beakers. So give me just a second to do that. All right. Ooh, nice and hot. Nice and hot. Ooh, hot. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to place this into these two containers. Ooh, sorry. Went over a little bit. Ooh, hot. And then I'm going to stir them up. I've got to do it at the same time, so I need another one. All right, so carefully put it in there, and we're just going to stir. And then put it close to, ooh, that's hot. And so they both will dissolve, but salt still has some more in there. There are more particles down in there than there was in the sugar. So sugar is more soluble. Sugar is more soluble in hot water. So it dissolves faster. They both will dissolve, but it dissolves faster. All right, so we're going to stop that for right now. And then we're going to restart the video in a few minutes with the unknown so that we can do the unknown. So, all right, we're going to stop for right now, and then you'll come back in a little bit and do the unknown.